In today's video, we'll be learning how to use automation in Studio One. Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. It's often said that automation is the difference between a good track and a great track, and I'm inclined to agree. With automation, we can breathe life into a track by adding dynamics. We can also make sure that things stay in balance throughout the course of a track, and we can create some cool special effects. So in today's video, I'm going to be starting off with the absolute basics and running through everything you really need to know about automation in your tracks. So let's not dilly-dally around, let's get started with the basics. So before we get stuck into the basics of automation, I just want to check some options with you in Studio One so that if you are following along, you get the same or similar results to me as you go. So here in Studio One, I'm going to press Control and comma on the keyboard to bring up options. I'm then going to go across to Advanced, click on that. I'm then going to go down to the Automation tab here and click on that. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these options with you today. I would recommend if this is your first time to try automation and you want to follow along, just set things up the same as I've got them set here. In particular, make sure you've got this one set where it says automatically add envelopes for all touch parameters. Make sure that that is checked. If you've made any changes at all, then click on apply at the bottom and then click on OK to get rid of this window. Now, the first type of automation we're going to do is volume automation. That's where we do change the volume of something by moving the fader on our console in Studio One. That's on the piano that I've got set up here is this fader down here, which you can see me moving there. Now, just as a mention, the piano I'm using, I'll just open it up here, is Noir Pure. This is a contact library. That's a native instruments one. But if you haven't got that, then just use any instrument at all. It really doesn't matter. So I'll close that there. So what I'm going to do is start off with the fader at 0. I'll just drag that all the way down to 0 so we won't be able to hear the piano, and then I'm going to gradually fade it in. Now, I want to record my actions as I go along. So down at the bottom below the fader, where it currently says auto off, I'm going to click on that and change it to write mode, and that changes red and says write there. That means it's going to write or record any actions that we take on this channel, especially with the fader at the moment. So let's press play on the keyboard. We don't need to press record. We just play the track and then it's going to record any actions we make. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gradually pushing the fader up. Okay, and then I'll just stop. Now, you will have noticed right away that this display right at the top here has changed. This is showing us our automation data as it's been recorded or written, okay? We're going to get back to this in a moment, but if you don't like to see that all the time, you can just press A on the keyboard to go back to the regular view that you have on tracks. Press A again to bring it back up. If you don't want to use keyboard shortcuts, then you can just press this button at the top here to show and hide automation data. We're going to leave it on for now. Now, the next thing I'm going to do right down here where we had this set to write is I'm going to change it to read. Okay, this means that now when we play the track, it's going to read this data and it's going to repeat the actions that we made when we wrote or recorded the data. Let's go ahead and press play. So honestly, no hands. It's all happening without me doing anything at all. And you'll see that that's faded in as we record it. Now, I'll stop there. Now, if we look at this display at the top, you'll see this sudden cliff here, and you can probably guess what's going to happen. If I play from that point, suddenly our fader goes back down to 0. And that's because when we started recording or writing automation data, that fader was down at 0, which means it was set to 0 for the whole track unless we did anything else. And we did something else which it recorded, but then after we stopped, it set it back to 0 again. So that's not very handy at all. I actually want it to stay at that level for the rest of the track. So I can get rid of this node here. We'll call these little dots nodes, okay? If I select that node and press delete on the keyboard, it just gets rid of that, and you can see that it's going to maintain that volume for the rest of the track. Okay, now I'll just undo that. Another way that we can do it even easier is just to double click on a node and that gets rid of it as well. Now these nodes are very, very handy because if you don't want to actually record your actions, but you want to be very, very precise or just do gradual things without having to record it, then you can use these nodes. To create a new node, for example, I can just hover over the blue line there. I'll just click on that and it's created a new node. I could then just drag that down like so and automatically create a fade out. Let's see how that goes. Okay, and of course, if I'm not happy about that, I can just grab it and drag it around like so to different positions. Notice it is snapping, so if you don't want it to snap to specific positions, then make sure you've got snap turned off, okay, so that you can do things like so. Now, if I hover over this line, you'll see that a new little kind of a node appears. I can actually grab that and drag that now, and I can make curves like so, okay, concave or converse curves. That means that you can create automation using nodes and then just make them really, really natural with these kinds of curves. Let's have a listen now. So what I sometimes like to do is record my actions as I did originally, but then just use that as a guide and draw new curves in there. So I can now just select a bunch of these nodes here, for example. I've seen roughly where my fade in happens, and I'm just going to drag across from the bottom here to do a range selection, and I'll just get rid of those nodes. I'm going to press delete on the keyboard to get rid of them like so, and then that's created this line between them, and then I could adjust that to make a nice curve. Now the reason I sometimes like to do that, not always, is just that if I do want to do some editing, it's much easier to edit just a few nodes than having a whole bunch as we did there earlier. As you can see, it was like this before. If I wanted to sort of make any changes, it's going to take a lot of doing. So I much prefer just to get rid of those, as I say, and then just create a nice curve myself like so. Okay, so that's the very basics of sort of recording and then reading back our actions. Next, we're going to look at the different modes of recording actions. So we originally created our automation by being in write mode on the channel, and that recorded any movements we made on the fader there. So I want to show you another couple of ways of recording our actions other than write mode. If we go down to the bottom where it says read at the moment, I'm just going to click on that, and you can see that there's another couple of modes we haven't used. That's touch mode and latch mode. I'm going to start off with latch mode here. So when we're in latch mode, what's going to happen is when we press play and start playing the track, it's actually going to be in read mode. It's just going to go ahead and read any information there. But as soon as we grab that control, in this case the fader, it's going to start to write or record the movements that we make on that fader. And then it's going to continue to do that until we press stop and stop the track from playing. So let's see that in action now. I'll press play. So our piano has faded in. I'm then going to grab the control and kind of wiggle it up and down. You can see what's happening there. And then I'm going to release that control. Now you can see at the top, it's continuing to record that level of the fader there on the automation track up here. And it's going to keep recording that level until we press stop, okay? Okay, so that's one way of recording new information when you've got some existing information there. I'm going to press undo, so that we go back to how we were. And I'm going to look at the other mode, which is touch mode. So we'll go to touch mode. Now this is a little bit different in that it's going to start off in read mode again. So it's going to read any information that's there. And as soon as we touch this control and make some changes, it's going to write those changes as it did before. But unlike latch mode, as soon as we release this control, it's going to go back to reading any existing information that was there. So let's see that in action. Starting off with the fade in, I'll grab the control, do the little wiggles again, like so, and then I'll release the control, and you can see it's carried on reading, and we've still got that fade out which we designed earlier intact. Okay, so those are the two other write modes that we have, being touch and latch. Now I'll undo that and I'll show you another use for these two modes. Say I've already recorded that volume information there, and now rather than record volume information, I want to record pan information using the pan control up here. So if I have it in write mode like so, Press right, okay. And then I'll go ahead and press play and I'll start making some changes to the panning here, okay. So I'm going from left to right. And you probably can't hear anything very much at all. And that's because it's actually re-recording the volume information. I'll press stop and you'll see here, I'll just change to pan at the top here. Okay, so where we have this selector here, it says volume. We can now change this so we can see our panning information. So you can see it has actually recorded that new panning information, where I was going from left to right, but it's also actually destroyed the volume information that we had there. We don't want it to do that. We want to leave that intact. So that's where both the touch and the latch modes become very important for us. So I'll undo that so that we've got our volume information back. Again, I'm going to record some pan actions, but I'm going to change this over to, let's change it to latch mode, I think is where we'll move it to. Okay, so this time I'm going to press play, move the pan around, but we should hear the piano fade in again. Starting from the left, going over to the right with the pan. Then I'm going to push it over so that it finishes off in the center. Okay, now I'll press stop and I'll switch over to pan so that we can see the pan information there, and you can see my actions have been recorded there for the panning, but my volume, if I switch back to volume, is still intact. We haven't destroyed it at all. So that's another really good use for both latch and touch modes. By the way, are you enjoying this video and finding it helpful? If you are, then please make sure that you hit the like button for me right away. That really does help me out. Also, if you do like this kind of content, especially Studio One tutorials, go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you're notified about my other videos. Now, back to this video. So what can be automated in Studio One? Well, as it turns out, quite a lot. We've seen the basics already, like the fader and the panning. We can also automate mute, and we can also automate our inserts and sends as well. So I've got a send set up here. It's sending off to this bus over here, which has a reverb plug in it, and I can control the amount that I'm sending over to that bus using this controller here. It's set down to 0 at the moment, so I want to automate that and have it gradually fade in. So I'll just start playing now and do that. Okay, so I've created that there. If we move change the display up there, you can see that that has been recorded there in the automation. You can also switch sends off and on and record that off and on action as well. So lots you can do in the channel itself. But what about plugins? Well, I mentioned over here that we actually have a plugin on this bus here, and this is the Rev Intensity plugin from Arturia. So I'll just double click on that, open that up. One of my favorite reverb plugins at the moment. So let's try and record something in this plugin. Now, in order to record some of the actions that we can take in this plugin, at the top left corner of the plugin, you can see we've got some controls there to set that to recording automation. I'll actually choose latch mode here. Let's go with that. And then I'm just going to change this size control here. So let's play and then adjust that size control. Okay, that had a freaky effect, didn't it? So you can see that what it did there, I'll just change this to read mode. What it did there was it created a new lane here. So of course, a plugin itself doesn't normally have a kind of a track in the track view here. So it's created an automation lane there, and it set up this size parameter here, which was the parameter that we were changing. Now you can change all kinds of things in different plugins. So for example, over here with this actual virtual instrument plugin, this piano here, sorry, I'll try that again. This piano plugin over here, I'll click on the right button. There's our piano. I'm going to adjust this color control here. So again, I'm just going to change this so it's in latch mode, and I'll change this color control. Let's go for that. And you you can see that that's been recorded, this time not by creating a new lane, because this is the virtual instrument which is on this existing track here, but it's created a new automation lane within the actual piano track there at the top there. Okay, now you can actually manually create your own automation lanes. So I could go down here at the bottom, I'll right click and I'll go add automation tracks. I'll add that in there. Starts off blank, but I can actually select anything that can be automated from Studio One. So I'll select where it says none here. I'll go to add remove. Click on add remove. So there's two basic sections which we can see here, console and instruments. So console relates to anything down in the console. So if I expand that, you can see the different tracks that we've already got: piano, piano rev, and main, which is our main fader. Okay, so let's say we wanted to adjust the volume on the main fader. I know we could do it in a regular mode, but let's just do it for fun this way. We'll go down to main, we'll open that, select its volume parameter, and then go add over here. And then we've created an automation track just for that purpose. So now I can do a fade out with our main control. I'll just quickly do that there, and I'll press play. And you can see that our main fader, all the way over on the right, where my face normally is, goes down like so. Now I'll undo that, because with that all the way down there, we can't hear anything. We could have added all kinds of things in there. Let's add something else here. So the other section that we have over here is instruments. I'll open that up. There's only one instrument. That's the piano at the moment. You'll see here, for those of you who ask me about this often, that you can actually automate all kinds of MIDI information here and add your automation on automation lane there. You can add, you can change things about the audio like so. And then there's all of these parameters from within that plugin, from within the piano plugin, which if I scroll down, you'll see there's so many of them. All of those things can be automated. So this is a kind of a handy way, if you go into this view, to see what actually can be automated on a plugin. So I think things get really interesting when we start to automate VCAs. Now, you may not know what a VCA is, so I'll just give you a quick crash course now. I'm going to demonstrate it to you rather than explain it. I'm going to select this piano here and this bass guitar. I've added a bass guitar track in here. I'm just pressing Control on the keyboard so I can select both of those. Then I'm going to right click here, and then I'm going to go to add VCA for selected channels. I'll do that, and you'll see that a new fader appears right on the end here with a nice red fader cap on it. It looks very, very different, and it hasn't got lots of options up here. VCAs are not audio channels of any kind. You can't do sends or inserts with them or anything like that. These act as remote controls for other faders. Now, I created this VCA for the piano and the bass. So as I move it up and down, you'll see the piano and bass faders move up and down. But notice they're maintaining their relationship with each other, yeah? You see how the piano's a little bit louder, the bass is a little bit quieter, yeah? They keep in line with each other, or out of line with each other. Now, if I were to adjust that relationship like so, then the VCA is going to maintain that new relationship. So VCAs are kind of like, I call them like remote controls for other faders. They're very, very handy when you want to control kind of sub mixes. Okay, so how do they relate to automation? So at the moment, I've got the automation switched off for these two channels, but I have recorded some, so I'll change them to read mode. Okay, and then I'll go back to the beginning of the track, and I'll press A on the keyboard so that we can see the automation there for the piano and the bass guitar. And you can see it's very similar to what I created earlier on. It fades in and then it fades out again relatively soon. Slightly different, but almost the same. So now we have a VCA controller controlling the volume of these two faders as well. So what happens when we adjust it? Well, let's move halfway through so we can see that the faders are up a little bit here with the automation. And now I'm just going to move this VCA fader down a little bit. Now, if you look at the top where the graph is, you'll see a new grey line appearing. I'll just wiggle the VCA up and down so that you can see that grey line. So that's showing the new actual position of the fader. Okay, so it's not destroying our automation, it's remembering how we started out, but it's relatively changing it. So it actually relatively keeps that kind of fade in and fade out happening. Very, very handy indeed. We can also automate the VCA itself. So I'm just going to switch that over to write mode. Let's start the track at the beginning there, and I'll mess around with that VCA. Okay, so now we've got a couple of things happening. The VCA itself is being automated. I'll change it to read mode, and it's going to be moving up and down. And it's also going to be adjusting the final volume of these faders while maintaining the relationship between the two of them. Very, very powerful if you want to create nice, organic, but kind of very controlled automation within your mix. So there's some things that I would dearly love you to do. First of all, if you're confused about anything at all, please do ask in the comments down below and I'll do my very best to help you out. If you did like this video, make sure you hit the like button. That helps me out. If you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button twice. And if you like this kind of content, subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you're notified about my future videos. Now, if you really want to help me out and thank me for this video, make sure you follow the link to my Patreon page. That's down in the description. There, for as little as $1 a month, you can help to support this channel, and I'll keep making Studio One videos and other videos about home recording. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.